People say all the time, sales, oh, best sales rep, sell ice Eskimos. Fuck you, you can. I'll tell you, that's the worst sales rep I've ever heard in my life. Sales reps aren't about convincing anybody of anything.
Right.
So the best sales reps it's about helping people solve problems or achieve goals.
Welcome to Own the Room, for people operating where the stakes are real. Pitches, negotiations, leadership conversations that don't come with a second chance. Here, you'll learn to control perception, read the room, and thrive in high-stakes communication. Now here's Jake Stahl, who's going to help you turn communication into your unfair advantage.
Most sales conversations don't fail because of pricing. They don't fail because of competition. They fail because somewhere between the first hello and the close, the rep lost control of the room. Today, I've got someone who has built one of the most tactical, execution-driven sales training brands in the world. John Barrows doesn't talk theory, he talks discipline, process, doing the work. So today we're going to dig into something I care deeply about. Is winning in sales about psychology, or is it about reps and grind? So John, welcome to the show.
What's up, Jake? Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too, brother. So I just want to dig right in.
Yeah.
When you have a rep come to you, John, and they say, John, I lost the deal. You've been doing this a long time. What actually happens when somebody just says to you, I lost the deal? What can you almost bet on that took place?
They missed something, obviously. I think a lot of it comes down to happy ears, right? They hear what they want to hear. They don't hear what they should hear. A lot of them, I find, go through the process really well, the sales process really well, where we qualify, then we discover, then we present, then we negotiate. But they don't really engage with the client. They don't really find out what the true problem is or differentiate themselves in any way. When they go through their demos, they go through the entire demo. When they go through the slide deck, they go through every slide.
Yeah.
And they try to force the client through the sales process, not meet the client in the buying process.
After reviewing as many calls as you have, what would you say is one of the most common mistakes in the first 30 seconds of a call?
The first, of a discovery call, of a cold call, where are we at there?
Let's
Discovery?
say it's a cold call.
Oh, the cold call?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Let me count the ways. There's only so many ways you can screw up a cold call, right? Because the cool thing now is those first 5 seconds matter, and they always have. And literally, that's why we break calls down into structure. You're not selling when you're cold calling. You're not selling your solution. You're selling time. You're selling the next step, right? Yeah. That first 5 seconds, we break down AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. So we use that as a framework to think about a call. Literally how you say hello makes a difference, right? And then that 5 seconds earns you another 10 to 15 seconds where you can tell them what you do. And that earns you another 2 minutes where you can maybe ask them some questions. And then that earns you a call to action next step. So if you're talking about the first 5 to 10 seconds of a call, the biggest mistake they do is what I used to do all the time is they don't pay attention to the 5 seconds of the first call, and they just do a generic little intro like I always did when I made 400 dials a week for 5 years of my life, which was, hey, Jake, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. How you doing today? And just that generic, no, who gives a shit. And by the way, I kind of joke on this one. I called it, that specific intro. Hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
I get what we're trying to do with that. We're trying to build rapport. We're in a very quick little way. Just, hey, how you doing? And be nice. But the problem with that is for the majority of my career, I called into the Northeast. I called into Boston and New York. What response do you think you get when you call into Boston or New York and you say, hey, how you doing today? If you don't get hung up on immediately, you get fine, what? And then you're immediately on the defensive and you're like, I'm sorry to bother you. So I guess the biggest mistake people make is that they actually don't pay attention to those 5 seconds. There's about 15 different ways to introduce yourself on a cold call that you should be thinking about, testing, and trying constantly to figure out which one keeps people on the phone in that engagement. Like I've morphed mine from, hey, how you doing today? To, hey, thanks for taking my call. Can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me? And it's really just selling that 30 seconds. I don't even say my name. I don't say, hi, this is John Barrows from, right, whatever. I go, hey, thanks for taking my call, which is, how you doing today? It's just as nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
But then I move right into, can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me? And there's a little preemptive strike there. Now, that one works for me. That might not work for somebody else. So it's about testing and trying things and being conscious of it, not just going through the motions like most reps do.
We talk about that a lot, that the hi, how are you to me is probably the most useless question we have.
Yep.
Because nobody gives a shit about the answer or the question.
I was so bad at it, I wouldn't even wait for your response. I'd be like, hey, how you doing today? I was wondering if you could point me in the right direction. Like, how rude is that? You know what I mean?
So, John, take us back a bit. I know you did a ton of cold calls and a ton of reps. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
So I fell into sales like everybody else. I had my marketing degree, drank my way through 4 years of college, and then I got out and I realized I don't want to do this. And I got into sales with DeWalt. It wasn't really sales. It was more event marketing, but it was labeled as sales. And I drove around giving away free tools to construction workers. And then I sold for Xerox. And that's where I got my real sales education. They had an 8-week sales training program that was world-renowned, the whole thing, and selling copiers. By the way, I sold copiers to the government. So it couldn't get much worse. Like, it was the definition of a commodity.
What a grind.
And I had to sell that commodity to the government. So I couldn't even negotiate on contract. My price was my price. But then where I really got you talked earlier about grit versus, right? Where I really developed the grit was at my first startup. So I was about 23 years old. My buddies and I started a company from high school, self-funded, did outsourced IT services to the SMB market. And we had no money. So I was the VP of sales and marketing. I always joke, this is how titles are a joke, because at the ripe old age of 23 years old, I was the VP of sales and marketing,
right.
Which, please.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't know anything. What I did know, going back to grit, I knew I wasn't the smartest kid out there by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? I'm not dumb, but I'm not like Harvard kid, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I always knew I could outwork anybody, period. And so I just leaned into that. And I ended up I figured out my equation early days as far as how many dials it took to get how many meetings, to get how many proposals, to get how many pieces of closed business and an average deal size. So mine is, I still remember it, our average deal size was $3,500 a month. We had a 50% close ratio to proposal to close deal. I had a 50% close ratio from qualified meeting to proposal.
Wow.
But I had a 0.5% conversion ratio from prospecting to, so I had to make 400 dials a week to get 8 meetings a month, to get 4 proposals, to get 2 pieces of closed business, an average deal size of $3,500. And that was while going on those meetings, while doing everything else. And so at the time, I thought the elevator pitch was it, right? I thought, ooh, you just got to come up with a kick-ass elevator pitch and
Right.
make it rain. And I still remember to this day my elevator pitch. And I promise you, it's actually still better than almost every other IT services pitch out there, but it still sucks. And I could do it without even, ready?
Yeah.
And for those of you who might not be watching this and might be listening to this, Jake, you can prove here, I am taking off my glasses, right?
It is, yep.
This isn't like an AI thing. I can't read a thing without my glasses. I'm going to shut my eyes here, ready? This is the voicemail that I left 399 times a week for 5 years. It went something like this. I'm sorry. It went exactly like this. Hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT support for small to mid-sized companies in the Boston area, and we take a really unique approach to manage your IT infrastructure by combining the best of what people and technology have to offer. We tie our network operations center and our managed services to your environment so we can take care of all the small things on a proactive basis. When the engineers come on site, they can take care of the higher level, more strategic initiatives to help drive your business forward. I'd love to talk to you about your IT support needs if you could call me back at 617-529-7271. This is John Barrows with Thrive Networks, 617-529-7271. And man, I was proud of that. I would leave that voicemail. I'd be like, what's up? Nailed it again. Like pitch, tone, everything was perfect on that one, right? And then all of a sudden I started looking at my numbers and I wasn't getting a damn callback, man. I would get more callbacks when I would screw up a voicemail than I would do the perfect one. I did this one by mistake once. I was like, hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT. Shit. I'm sorry. I was trying to do pitch there. That was a disaster. Look, we fix computers. You got problems with your computers. I got more callbacks with that approach. So I started doing it on purpose. I always say, looking back on it, I would still make, and this goes back to your original point of grit versus, I would still make the 400 dials. I would. Because you don't know what you don't know. Even as a manager, when I had a rep, after I had figured out that equation, when a new rep would come on board, I would be like, make 400 dials a week. Here's a general sense of the script and what we got here and whatever it is. Then we'll talk. Because the two levers I can pull as a manager, quality, quantity.
Of course.
And the easier one for me to measure is quantity. Can you do the work?
Yep.
And so I would have a rep come to me after the month and they would say, John, I'm not hitting my numbers. I'd be like, did you hit 400 dials last week? No, I did 250. Then shut the fuck up. Shut up and get back on the goddamn phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
But once you hit 400 dials a week for a few and we're still not seeing the results, then we can work on quality.
Yeah.
Now, my mistake back then was it was just a numbers game for me.
Yeah.
Now what I've realized is I'm a huge, and I think everybody needs to do this, especially now, we got to be agile. I'm a big A/B split test guy.
Yep.
So I don't care what it is, right? What I should have done is instead of making 400 generic cold calls with a generic elevator pitch, I should have come up with 4 different approaches and done 100 and seen which one yielded a higher response rate.
Every single day.
And tweaked. Going back to intros.
Yeah.
I could have the same message, but make 50 dials with this intro and 50 dials with this intro and see which one gets me into the conversation better.
Yeah. So that leads to an interesting question. And honestly, this goes down a million rabbit holes I love to go down, but let's hit the obvious one. You read a script. What's the value of a script at this point? Does it really help reps or does it create like this robotic energy?
Yes, and I used to rail against scripts. I used to absolutely like they're the worst, and I've loosened my opinion.
Okay.
And the reason is because you don't know what you don't know when you're getting started.
Right.
Like you literally, especially as a brand new sales rep,
For sure.
you have no clue what you're doing.
Yep.
So you need a script. You need a talk track through it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But it's just like the same thing but it's not the rep's fault. It's how we train the reps and the leeway that we give them. So it's the same thing with teaching a rep on the slide deck, on the presentation deck, right? Through their 30, 60, 90, when they're going through that, they get certified. So show me, and I do want to see you, like when you do when you do the presentation, like the 30-page slide deck that we have here about our solution, right. I need to feel comfortable that you can go through the entire deck and you can talk about each slide.
Yeah.
However, a month later, I should re-certify you to see how you've made that your own.
That's a good
how you've taken that slide deck and evolved it or adapted it to the situation. Because if I come a month later and I give you a different, unique situation with a different type of client and you're still going through every fucking slide, I'm going to fail you because that's not the point. It's the same thing with a script. I'm gonna see you read the script. I want to hear your voicemail. I want to hear your talk track. I want you to memorize it and all that other stuff. But in a month later, if I come back and you are still saying that exact same script to different people, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be as a leader, I failed you because I didn't give you the structure to play around with the different parts to make it your own.
Right.
So I like going from scripts short term to structure mid and long term. Because the structure, going back to AIDA, that allows me to say, hey, here's the structure of a call, right? Here's how I would script that call based on for this persona, right? So here's the script based on that structure. But now we're going to call different personas. We're going to call, the way you introduce yourself is probably going to be different than the way I introduce myself. Like, right. I'm John Barrows from Boston, Massachusetts. I take a very direct and in-your-face approach to selling. I got no problems being direct. I got no problems asking the tough question or the awkward question in a lot of ways, right? But if you're from down south, if you're from Georgia or North Carolina or something like that, and you don't have my personality, that's going to be a disaster for you if you even try it. Yeah. So I want to move you to a structure and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you test a couple of different intros here that feel comfortable to you? All right, here's the message. This is the succinct message that we want. Now, the way you phrase it, though, make it your own. Because I don't want to hear like the elevator pitch, right? Like how would you say this in your words? So I think scripts, but very soon after they memorize or get the script, we have to give them the structure to allow them to figure out what's going to work for them specifically versus what worked for me.
I would agree. And you and I talked about scripts when I was on your show. And one of the things that I hated as a sales manager was if somebody comes on board with me and they were good at a script, you're not good at selling, you're good at reading. Right. So you're not bringing a transferable skill to me. Right. Yeah, I hear you 100%. So you've seen good reps, you've seen lousy reps, you've seen killer reps. What would you say are the differences between somebody who's good? They hit their numbers all the time, exceed them by 5 to 10%. What's the difference between that person and the person that is like doubling their numbers? Their close rates, 50, 60%. What are the things that separates those two?
Work ethic without question. It's not just working hard, right? You got to work smart too. But the ones I look at are the EQ components that I think are becoming more and more important right now, which are genuine curiosity and what I call the give a shit factor. Right?
Let's hear it.
Like Morgan Ingram. So you're familiar with Morgan, right?
Yep.
So Morgan worked for me for a while, right? He was an SDR and he was an SDR manager, right? So great at those, right? So when I brought him on board, he was creating cadences and doing all this stuff and he was getting some pretty good results. Kid came out of the gate strong. But then he leveled off, right? And he was a little concerned because he came to me and said, John, I feel like I'm doing all the right stuff here with my cadences and everything, but I'm just not getting the results that I feel like I should be. He's like, what do I need to change in order to get better results? I said, Morgan, your results aren't going to change until one thing does. And he goes, what? I go, until you start giving a shit, man. And he goes, what? I go, look, I know you care about working here. I know you care about your job. I know you care. But until you actually start genuinely giving a shit about the person you're reaching out to, and you stop treating them as a number you have to hit or a cadence you have to send or a call you have to make or a dial, like until you start looking them at as a human who wakes up in the morning, has to get their kids to the school bus, has to sit in traffic to get into the office, has a boss that's yelling down their back, has 15 initiatives that they're trying to work on and juggle. Until you start genuinely thinking of them from that perspective, it's not going to matter. Your results aren't going to change.
Love that.
And I think that holds true for sales in general, like the closers too, is authentic. I think especially now in AI, authenticity is going to come screaming through to people, like people who genuinely care. Look, sales used to be a true profession about problem solving. People say all the time, sales, best sales reps sell Eskimos. Well, fuck you, you can. I'll tell you, that's the worst sales rep I've ever heard in my life. Sales reps aren't about convincing anybody of anything.
Right.
So the best sales reps it's about helping people solve problems or achieve goals. And sometimes those problems that they have aren't something you can solve.
Right.
So being able to be resourceful and bring in partners, bring in resources, bring in those type. If you have that mentality of, I am genuinely trying to help you, first of all, identify what the core problem is, not just what the surface level problem is that you might not even understand. But my job is to really make sure I'm asking the right questions here to make sure we understand what the core problem is here.
Yep.
And then I got to help you solve that problem. And sometimes, like I said, it's like, shit, man, I could probably help a little bit here, but you need this first and that. Let me bring a couple people in. Yeah. And you might miss the short-term deal of getting that, but I'm a big believer in what goes around comes around, and I'm a big believer in karma, and I'm a big believer of doing the right thing. And so those are the best reps, is that they become that real trusted advisor that the client is looking for. They disqualify sometimes more than they qualify. They bring solutions. They recommend things that have no benefit to them at all, but really will benefit the client. And they can help the client see things that they can't see. Those are the ones that I notice that have great relationships at the highest levels, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of other variables involved there, but it's about really having business acumen, understanding the client's true, you know what I'm walking in prepared. So you're not just saying, tell me about your business or what keeps you up at night and any of that dumb shit. Not relying on your SE to do all the work, right? Because you're lazy as hell and you let them do all the demos. Not relying on your VP of sales to come in and get the executive engagement because you're too chicken shit to make a phone call or have a reason to talk to the executive level. Those are the ones that separate themselves from everybody else.
Your candor is refreshing. I like it a lot. I'm glad it wasn't a speech about handling objections, or I'm glad it didn't follow into that. So I think we can both agree confidence is a big piece of it, right? The more you get confident, the better. So do you think confidence is built or trained? Or do you think it's a mixture of both?
I think it's built, right? Because the whole fake it till you make it is actually, I used to buy into that. Now I don't. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't, because people can tell you when you're faking it. And I think false confidence is actually borderline ego. There's a fine line between confidence and ego. Fine line, but a huge difference. And I think confidence comes from preparation. Confidence comes from knowing that you don't have all the answers and being okay with that. And not knowing that you don't have to. Having confidence that you will figure it out. So it's funny that this comes up because I have this make it happen, right? This has always been my tagline forever, is make it happen. Just fucking make it happen, man. I don't care. But I just created a new t-shirt. Even after 15 years of me sporting this shit, I'm going to start introducing a new phrase for my t-shirts and say, figure it out. Yeah. We have lost the figure it out mentality in our society. Like we lost the, and look, maybe it's because I'm a Gen Xer and I had to figure it out, right? Like when we were kids, it was like, well, figure it out. I don't give a shit. I don't know what you did. Just be home by dinner. Don't burn anything down. So like I was born to figure it out. Yeah. And now watching reps sit there and be like, I didn't have my list right. I didn't have the right technology. I didn't have it's like, what the fuck? Do you understand the resources we have available to us now with AI and all these other things? Like it has never been easier to figure it out. And so I think that right there is where we really need to start figuring it out, because that gives you the confidence. When you fail, And that's the other thing is like people are so scared to fail right now. And I believe confidence doesn't come from winning. No. Confidence comes from failing.
Yeah.
Learning from that failure and then figuring out how to get better the next time. That's where confidence comes from, right? Yeah. And taking the veil off that you have to know all the answers. I have no idea what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'll figure it out. And I care enough that I'm going to figure it out. If you fit somebody who I can help, I'm going to put in the effort in to figure that out. I'll figure out how I can help you, whether I'm pulling in resources or figuring it out on my own or those type of things. So I think that's a piece of confidence that I think we can train people on the skills, the tactics and the techniques and all that other stuff. But unless they're willing to try and fail, unless they're willing to put themselves out there and learn, they might build false confidence, right? But I think if we overtrain them, we build false confidence, because if we give them the perfect answer, we give them the perfect objection handling technique, we give them the perfect script. And if it works, that's actually a bad thing in a lot of ways, because they won't understand why it works. They haven't built it themselves. And then the minute that it doesn't work, they'll fall apart.
I would agree. And I think two things that scare me right now are the fact that authenticity has become a differentiator. That's a little frightening to me.
Yep.
And the other thing that's scary to me is
I'm psyched about it.
People who can't communicate for shit are trying to communicate to an AI about how it should communicate. Right? So
AI.
What do they say? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So you have somebody who can't communicate for anything, communicating to an AI how it should work itself. Scary stuff.
This is where my optimism, pessimism comes in, right? With where we're going. We've gone from a search engine to an answer engine. And that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Because we could all argue that Google kind of told us whatever it felt like telling us, right? Whatever. But at least it was a perception of choice. We had to scroll through down a little bit, read an article or two, heaven forbid, right? And then come up with our own, okay, yep, that's my source of truth, right?
Right.
Where now you go into AI, it gives you the answer, man.
Yeah.
And for those of us that are curious, it's a superpower. Oh, yeah. Tell me more about this. Give me an example of source check. Give me a different perspective on this. Why does that matter? Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the vast majority of our population, and I don't mean just sales reps, I mean our entire humanity population, are lazy as shit.
Yeah.
And they're just going to take that answer, copy, paste, send.
Right.
And in that scenario, my friend, I do not understand the value of the human.
No.
I just don't. This is why my biggest fear for anybody who doesn't think that and hasn't jumped into this AI stuff to try to figure it out, to augment, not automate, but for anybody who doesn't think that they're in trouble right now, I beg them, sales reps specifically, go into ChatGPT right now, or Anthropic, pick your poison, and pretend like you're a potential customer for your solution. So for me, I would go in and I would say, I'm a VP of sales of a 50-person sales team. I have 20 SDRs. I have 30 AEs. I'm looking at the JB sales training for filling the funnel, for prospecting. Tell me what I need to know. What are the pros and cons? How does this marry up to my 12 to 24-month business plan of my strategy as an organization? And will it help? Should I even look into this solution? Oh, by the way, how does he compare against the other top 3 vendors on G2? When you realize in a 5-minute conversation with ChatGPT, you get more value out of some dipshit little 22-year-old kid who's going to call you up and ask you BANT questions and then flip you over to an AE a week later who's going to ask you the same dumb BANT questions and then through some meaningless generic demo and then wait another week to talk to an SE who's probably going to ask you the same questions and then maybe give you some value, right? There's literally no comparison of the two experience. This is why, like, you hear all these tools that are coming after sales and everybody, it's going to take over sales. No, I'm not worried about the tools that are coming after automating us. What I'm worried about is when the client wakes up and realizes they don't need us.
Yeah.
And most sales reps right now are following a process. Just qualification, discover, send the demo, right? That is unnecessary in a world of AI.
Right.
Unnecessary. If you can't be dynamic, if you can't figure out how to be curious and ask interesting questions that get the client to think a little bit, meet them where they are, even on a cold call with value. If you can't do that right now, you are on your way to extinction as a sales rep, period. And I don't think it's going to take that much longer. I think this year, by the end of this year, the amount of shakeout that's going to happen in SaaS in general, but for sales specifically, is, I think, going to be drastic.
I would agree. And Gartner, I think you probably read the study Gartner put out, I think it was a year or two ago, that said 80% of people would prefer to buy without the interference of a sales rep.
I used that stat back in 2022. It was 43%. They averaged Gen Xers, Boomers, and Millennials. And the average was 43% wanted a rep-free experience. Now it's up to about 80. That's the bad news, okay? But I don't know what they updated this one on. But the good news of that stat back in 2022 was of the 43% that wanted a rep-free experience, they had a 23% higher regret rate.
Oh.
So they regretted the decision more when a sales rep wasn't involved. So it tells me there's a lot of value for us to add. It's just different than it ever has been before. And this is why I think we don't need to, here's a quick example. Like, I have always been a believer that the sales rep doesn't have to be the product expert. That's why we have sales engineers, right?
Right.
So you got to be the quarterback. I got to bring the right people in, make sure I manage the process, right? Whatever. And then I saw AI a couple of years, like when I first got, I was like, oh my God, nope, sales reps have to be the product experts. They got to be able to answer the questions because the customer is going to come up with so much knowledge that if they can't answer and bring value, they're screwed. But then I flipped my opinion and I'm like, actually, no, we need to go back to being the generalist and the quarterback with AI. So here's an example. I think every company should put together an internal SE-GPT, so a sales engineer GPT.
Right.
That can answer any technical, not do the configurations and anything like that, but can literally answer any technical question. So now, if I'm meeting with you, Jake, right?
Yep.
And you're a prospect, and I'm asking you, and you ask me a question, and I don't know. You know, like it's a technical thing. I'm like, actually, historically, it'd be like, you know what, Jake, let me get back to you on that one. Or let me schedule a call a week later so I can get my engineer to have that conversation. And in this world right now, if I wait a week to get that, I'm gone.
Yeah,
you're gone. So what I think reps should do, instead of using all these AI tools to like, oh, John, Jake just said this, make sure you ping up these things and try to like pretend like I'm a real person telling you these things, even though AI is serving it up to me on the back end.
Yeah.
I think that's stupid. Instead of that, be like, hey, Jake, you know what? That's a good question, man. You know what? I don't know the answer to that. Why don't we learn this together? I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to open up. We have an internal GPT here that's all our technical information of everything that we've ever done. Let's ask it that question. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's think of it this way. Hey, could you run a trend analysis? Could you run a scenario here of this, that, and the other thing? And like literally learn out loud with the client. I think if we do that, we can bring tons of value because the client might not know the questions to ask. They might not know the angles of what they should be looking at.
Yep.
But I do, hopefully, as a sales rep. So using that tool to get them the answer then and being transparent about it, I think is the way that we have to evolve here, personally.
I think it's amazing because there's a common thread through our conversation. You started with when you were doing your pitch for that company, how when you messed up, you got more of a response.
Yes.
And then we went to how we should say, I don't know. And we should say, let me find out. And now we're talking about getting the customer involved. It sounds to me like imperfection is almost a quality trait of a salesperson.
I think it's our superpower. Like the tactical example of videos, right? People use videos on prospecting or whatever it is, and I see reps like freak out. They stutter for a second, and they're like, "Oh, I got to redo this," and they take 15 different cuts to get that perfect video that says exactly what they want to. I'm like, no, one cut video, even if you fuck it up. So if I'm doing a video, hey Jake, what's going on, man? I was on your website and I actually noticed. Sorry, man, I'm a little nervous here. I don't do too many videos here, but I really wanted to connect with you because that video will be so much better than the perfect one. Because guess what? AI is perfect, or can be. Humans aren't. And I think that is our superpower. I used to feel very self-conscious. I told you I'm a state school kid, drank my way through college. I missed touch typing when I didn't miss it. I totally bailed on it. that was like the one class I wish I took in high school, right? Because I'm a hunt and pecker. Yeah. So it's one of those things when I used to be very self-conscious previously because I misspell things. I don't capitalize every letter, like that type of stuff. Yeah. And obviously I clean up all my misspellings. But these days, I don't go back and recapitalize the first letter of the sentence anymore. I actually purposely don't. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm a human.
Yeah.
And I think just that alone, right? Making mistakes, being authentic, being open, but not just being like, hey, I don't know. Or not even, I don't know, I'll find out for you and get back later, which is what historically was the right answer to say.
Yeah.
Now it's, I don't know, let's figure it out together right now.
Yeah.
And if you're not dynamic or confident enough to do that, you're going to be in trouble.
And there's a lot of value to making the customer a part of the process.
Yes.
Right? If they can help build it, they're going to be more invested in it. Yeah.
All day. That's why, like, curious. So here's another challenger sale, right? We have a challenger sale. Right? Challenger sale is a disaster in this market, by the way. But let's play it still works, which it doesn't. But the whole idea, like, lead with insights. Okay, I like that part of challenger sale. But like the challenge, hey, you make this decision once a year. I help people make it every day. Let me show you where people make good decisions. Like, that's jackass. Shut up. Yeah. So I never did that. Even though I've been in this industry for 30 years.
Right.
I've been a VP of sales. I've been a CEO. I could go toe to toe with any CEO or any VP of sales on the planet, and I could challenge this shit out of them, and I'd probably be right. Okay, but even still, with my experience and all that, I still don't challenge somebody like that. The way I challenge them is by asking questions to get them, to your point, to think. Right. And get them. It's almost like the movie Inception, where they go layers and they plant that seed and all of a sudden it grows. Look, I don't want to go 20 layers deep and spend 100 years down there or anything like that. But I do want to figure out because to your point, if I can make it your idea, all of a sudden, I don't have to do shit, man. So that's why I ask you questions. If I think you're looking at it the wrong way, I'll ask you questions to get you to go, huh? Actually, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. Like, so yeah, actually, if we did it this way instead, it's yeah, that's a good idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the way, like, that's why curiosity matters. That's why, when the client gives you an answer, not having your next answer set, next question set, but sit with that question for a second. Did they answer it the right way? Like active listening, holy shit. Re-summarize back to them. Let me make sure I heard you right. Am I clear that you said, this is what you said was? It doesn't seem like that's tell me, could you explain to me a little bit more? Layering questions. Tell me more about that. Could you give me an example of how that actually impacts you? Why does that matter? Like those are the type of things of being genuinely curious. And this is where the question I have all these is because you ask born or bred or sometimes that it's curiosity is one of those things. I think you are born genuinely curious or not. Genuinely curious, and across the board. Like I think I was blessed with being born genuinely curious because I know I'm not the smartest kid out there. So that's why I'm trying to figure it out. But so therefore, if you're not genuinely curious, can you teach curiosity? Yes, but I think it starts with getting interested. Because if I can get you interested in something, then you'll become curious in learning more about it. So that's why, like customers, for instance. When I had a bunch of reps, we tier out our accounts, top 25, and every rep would have a top 25 based on very detailed demographic information. But before I would allow them to prospect into those top 25, I would tell them, all right, give me your list, 25. Now, I want you to go back onto that list and tell me what's the reason you personally want to work with those companies. What's the connection here? Is it their values? Is it their product's pretty cool? Is it their leadership? What is it about that company outside of they look like a good company that we could sell something to? What's your connection? Because once they made that connection of, man, this is a kick-ass company. I totally want to work with them because I know I can help them, but B, man, oh my God, they're so cool.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the messaging became a lot more authentic. They became a lot more curious. They became a lot more interested in learning about the business and figuring out a way to help them. And you could see it. So I don't know if we can teach genuine curiosity, but I can get people to be curious, but I got to back up and get them interested in it first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We talked a lot about AI. So we know AI is flooding sales right now. In your opinion, what should just never be automated?
That's a tough answer, man.
I know. That's why I brought it up.
It's a tough question because I could sit here and say, oh, the relationship and the really understanding the discovery. But within a year, all that shit's going to be done better with AI than most humans ever could. I don't know. I hate automating anything because I look at it as augmentation, not automation. Going back to the answer engine versus the search. If you use it, so many of us are jumping to the answer. Right? Write me the best email. Put together a great proposal. But forgetting the why of like, why does that matter? Why is that a great email? Why is that trigger event for a merger and acquisition relevant to your solution?
Yeah.
And so we're ripping away the learning of it. So as the purist in me, I don't want to automate a goddamn thing. Maybe the research, I'll go back to Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Back in 2017, I met Gary V, and it was right after a couple of reps, and this was 2017, way before any of the AI hit mainstream. And a couple of reps had left Salesforce.com, and because I had trained all the reps from 2010 to 2018 there. And they used my email to create an AI bot that creates super hyper personalized emails at a fraction of the time. And they're like, John, we want to show it to you. It's based on your email. I'm like, please shut up, whatever. Yeah, sure. Send me the sample. And they sent me the sample. And dude, I fell out of my chair. I was like, what? I'm like, this is one of the most personalized, relevant emails I've ever seen. I'm like, how? I'm like, there was no human involvement in writing this? And they were like, nope, other than picking the article to use from our app. And by the way, it took 30 seconds. And I was like, what? And this was back in 2017. I freaked out because that's what I train reps how to do. I train them write personalized emails back in the day. So I'm freaking out. And I met Gary Vee. It was this 4D session. You get to go to 10 other entrepreneurs and all this other stuff. And then he comes in at the end and does a Q&A. And I said, Gary, I just saw a robot write an email better, faster, and more personalized than I ever could, man. I go, where does that leave us as humans? And he said something still that sticks with me to this day. He goes, don't worry about the tech. You're not going to beat it, man. But be the last mile. Let the tech do all the heavy lifting. Let it do the research. Let it write the email even. But right before you hit send, just make sure you humanize it. Write it, let the write the proposal, the strategy, but understand the strategy and the proposal, and then be the last mile when you talk to the client about it. So that's really stuck in my head.
Love it.
The challenge comes with that is such a small part of our population that can leverage that data. Like I said, most reps are process people. They do they busy time makes them feel like they're doing shit.
Like they're getting stuff done.
And so it's such a small part of our population that can leverage the insights that AI can give us to then be that last mile and be the one that makes sense of that last mile. Right. And based on experience and all that other stuff, says I'm calling bullshit on some of that stuff that it just produced because I know if you did, that's a great general answer that sounds awesome on paper. But when you apply that in real world, that won't happen. But that comes with 20 years experience, 30 years experience. My challenge right now, and I don't know how to wrap my head around this because I see where it's all going. But all the stuff that you and I did when we were kids, right? All the grind, all the calls, all the writing shit down and updating, like all that stuff allowed us to have this conversation, allowed us to be in sales meetings where we don't need a script. We don't need a slide deck. We can literally just have a call on a business level conversation. All that grind shit, early work can now be done better, faster, and cheaper by AI by far than any junior kid ever could do.
Without a doubt.
So I don't know where the fundamentals come from anymore, and I don't know what the fundamentals are anymore. So long-winded answer to your question, I think everything from a sales standpoint is probably going to get automated. What scares me the most is when the buying process gets automated. Like when AI starts buying shit, because we're already at a point where it can scrape the network based on whatever my strategy is. It can then go look at my entire tech stack, give me recommendations of which ones I can cut out, and then figure out which ones I need to marry up to my 12 to 24 month business plan, go out and send an RFP to the top 3 vendors in each one of those areas, evaluate that RFP, and then bring it back and say, okay, here's the 2 vendors that actually fit with our strategy, what we're trying to do. It can already do that.
Yeah.
And in that case, like there is zero room for the sales rep in that scenario. So if you want to talk today, what shouldn't you automate? I don't think you should automate outbound from a sales standpoint. I think if you want to automate outbound with AI from marketing standpoint, absolutely. Do I think you should automate inbound? 100%. I think I do not understand why inbound SDRs are still a thing. I just don't. AI can answer it faster, better, and bring people far further down than any 22-year-old kid who's going to take a week and a half to get back to somebody if they get back. Inbound should be automated, period. Outbound from a sales and ABM standpoint, not a marketing ABM standpoint. I think that should still be super targeted, maybe supplemented by AI to get us to the last mile where the rep then configures it and comes up with a story to tell that person with a hypothesis and all that stuff. Because again, the reason I don't want to automate is because I don't want to take the learning away from the human. So that's why I don't want to automate anything. But I know that eventually it's all going to get automated. So what shouldn't be automated right now is almost anything that has to do with that last mile.
Got it.
What is going to get automated? Pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm screaming at sales reps to wake the fuck up right now and stop going through the motions. Jump into AI, if I was a sales rep right now, I would figure out how to use AI to do 80% of what I currently do so that I could figure out that 20% that makes me special.
Yeah. And really sink your teeth into it.
Yep. That's where we are right now, in my opinion.
No, and I love that. And I normally end a show now, but I can't help but ask one more thing.
Yeah.
If you had to bet on one skill that it matters more in the next 5 years than it did in the last 5 when it comes to selling, what would that be?
Curiosity. Curiosity about AI, curiosity about the customer, curiosity about your career, curiosity about curiosity and real, I'm interested in this and I am curious about you as a human. Because think about it, right? Let's talk about just relationships. You could be the coolest kid in the room and you won't have to say a damn thing about yourself.
Yeah.
All you got to do is, Jake, tell me about you. Tell me more about you. Tell me more about you. You know what I mean? And you make everybody loves talking about themselves. Yeah. And so if you are curious about other people, if you are curious about technologies, if you are curious about these things, you'll make people feel fantastic because everybody wants to be heard.
Yep.
And all you got to do is be the person that is genuinely curious about them and their relationship and who they are and what they're trying to do. And that'll come across. So I think curiosity is hands down the skill that is going to be exponentially more important moving forward.
I love that. I think the curiosity and the ability to really hear somebody out when you ask the question.
Genuinely listening. That's why you have to tie it to the give a shit factor. You can't just want to ask questions just because I ask questions because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
You should ask questions because you actually give a shit about what the answer is. And then listen to the answer, sit with it for a minute, figure out if you actually understand what they said and if it's something that needs clarification, and then figure out where to go from there. But we're also short-term focused. We're also next step, gotta do right. Slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
Just slow down and care.
Love it. So, John, before we go, tell people how to get in touch with you. And I'd love for you to talk to people about what your sales training program is and what you offer.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, jbarrows.com is the best way to find everything I got. So jbarrows.com. That's where you'll get my podcast, my newsletter, my YouTube channel, and the training that I provide. Corporate training, I train Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Dropbox, Amazon, all those big tech companies. But I also do individuals. And so I bring all that training that I've delivered to all those companies over the years. And what I use every day, by the way, I'm not really a trainer. I'm a sales rep who happens to train. So I'm out there selling every single day. And that's why the stuff that I use is constantly evolving. But I have it all on demand at my individual membership where you can go and get all the same training, fill in the funnel, driving to close, all the prospecting, negotiation, all the fun stuff, super tactical. And then really just there for people. So Instagram, anybody can get free. Connect with me on Instagram. It's John M. as in Michael Barrows. And that's where I do all my free consulting. So if people want to listen in here, have a question about sales, just DM me on Instagram. Be like, hey, John, what's going on? I got this question. I'll get right back to you. So I'm just really trying to do my best to learn out loud because I know I'm not the smartest kid out there, but I got enough experience these days and I'm curious enough and I got a decent enough platform to try shit out and fail hard in front of people, but learn from it. And my goal is, because I've been around and been fortunate enough to have some really cool experiences, is I'm hoping that a lot of my failures and learning lessons can help some other reps maybe skip a few steps, not all of them. Again, there's no silver bullet in this world, but I live between the world of the give a shit factor and unconscious competence. I can't get you to care. I just can't. And I'm done trying. I'm done trying to get you to give a shit. But once you care, once you give a shit, man, I will give you literally everything I got until you get to the point of unconscious competence where you don't need this stuff anymore.
Fantastic. John, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Love talking to you. This has lived up to its expectations. So thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for checking out Own the Room with Jake Stahl. If you've gotten value from this episode, share it with the solopreneur in your life who wants to know how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected. Review and rate the show wherever you check out podcasts, and grab your copy of Own the Room, How to Communicate to be Seen, Heard, and Respected. We'll catch you next week on Own the Room.